CBS News Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues following the latest for us. Jeff, thanks for being with us this morning. First, to Rahami's personal writings and the possible ties to various radical ideologies. What do we know at this hour?
Well, what CBS News is learning from multiple sources is that there was this radicalization which seems to have come through Al-Qaeda, through Boko Haram, so through several different organizations and some sermons that he may have been looking into or watching online. And so that's what we're learning this morning that's really new, because everybody's trying to get at the motive here. What sparked or triggered this action? And, you know, early on, the theory is always when you have a situation like this or a case like this, there is some sort of source of inspiration, radicalization online that causes this type of behavior. And so that's what investigators are getting at now when they look at this handwritten note and they look at this notebook and what's in those pieces of evidence. They are rants, is what we're hearing. That there was some sort of irritation that he felt that Muslims were being unjustly killed. And so some of this speaks to the motive, not entirely. You know, for example, still the question, why Chelsea? Why Seaside Park, New Jersey? And so those questions are still out there, and that's what investigators are looking to. And the New York City Police Commissioner has said, you know, even though he's in custody, the investigation still continues.
Right, it's just begun, really.
Exactly.
Then with regard to his international travel, specifically to Afghanistan, where he was born, and a year or so spent in Pakistan and Quetta, which is something of an Al-Qaeda stronghold. There are reports he has a wife still living in Afghanistan. To what degree will that now become a focus of this investigation? Well,
that is a big part of the investigation, and they're going to have to work with intelligence agencies overseas as well in Afghanistan and Pakistan to see who he was visiting there, because when you're looking at sources of radicalization and whether there was any direct contact between the suspect and some sort of terrorist organization, whether it's Al-Qaeda or somebody else, you know, they have to follow up on these leads. So his international travel is important. And what we've learned is that he traveled to Afghanistan at least 3 times. There was a stop in Pakistan along the way. And so they will follow up on those leads as well. And they'll have to work with intelligence agencies and law enforcement in those countries to get to the bottom of who was he visiting when he was there. And are some of those folks that he was visiting tied to any type of terrorist organizations?
Meanwhile, we do know he left a fingerprint on one of the devices. It certainly helped to identify him. As well, there is a report that the 2 men originally perhaps believed to have been accomplices in placing the bomb on 27th Street in Chelsea may have looked instead to just be purloining the bag in which the bomb was placed, may have unwittingly deactivated the bomb. I know you've mentioned it speaks to the police work here, the fact that a little luck combined with a lot of good old-fashioned police work really got this thing solved within really 48 hours.
Yeah, it is remarkable. I think sometimes we forget how hard the job is if you're an investigator and solving these very serious crimes. But in this case, yeah, investigators moved relatively quickly to make an arrest here, and that was just piecing together the little pieces of this puzzle, and that's what led to the suspect who's now in custody. And by the way, he is not cooperating. He is not cooperating with them. He's still hospitalized. He was injured in that shootout, but he's not cooperating. But again, it goes back to this evidence that investigators are looking through. They're scrubbing his electronic evidence. So while he's not talking, they're still gathering information on him and trying to answer some of the questions that we still don't know the answers to. And that is specifically the motive. That's the question that's still out there.
And whether or not he is a part of a larger terrorist cell, perhaps the power that we saw, that alert that was sent that OEM alert, the first of its kind sent that wasn't an Amber Alert or an alert for severe weather. Officials yesterday really spoke to the impact of a force multiplier there.
Yeah, and that, you know, and we heard that again today from the police commissioner of New York City, who was talking about the power of that type of technology to send out a message to millions of people all at once. It really is remarkable when you think about that technology and how it can help law enforcement, and that's what we saw in this case. That really helped them get the message out and eventually get the suspect in custody. So there were several things at play here that really speaks to the police work that was involved, the cooperation between different agencies, Linden, New Jersey Police, FBI, federal law enforcement partners, and the NYPD. You know, the reality is the relationship between the NYPD and the FBI hasn't always been great. But over the years, they've worked on that relationship and they've built that trust. And I think what we're seeing here play out, how they're cooperating, is really testament to the fact that they have buried some of the bad blood that was underneath the surface of that relationship. And it's so critical for them to cooperate, especially in these terrorism cases. And that's where the Joint Terrorism Task Force really comes into play and why that's important. You have all these different agencies sharing information, which again is part of the lesson from 9/11. Is that these agencies have to cooperate. And that's part of the problem in Europe, is that they have not had that cooperation until now, but they're working on that, just as U.S. law enforcement over the last 15 years since 9/11 has had to work on those relationships too. So everybody is sharing information.
It's a remarkable thing too when you consider that this was, again, the new police commissioner's first day on the job, Saturday.
Welcome to the job.
Welcome to the
right?
gig, James O'Neill. You mentioned, as he said this morning, this investigation is really only just begun. It would seem that your work here has only just begun. Jeff Pegues, we do appreciate the insight.